Boom, there it is. All right, welcome everybody to this beautiful Wednesday. I have got a cool, funny, awesome guest. We're going to have a great time talking about gamifying your therapy. So here we go.
Practicing Polyamory, real-life perspectives from the imperfect people of polyamory. The mission of the Practicing Polyamory podcast is to provide a platform for all of the real-life, flawed humans that practice polyamory so that we might all learn from one another and grow as a community. Enjoy the show.
All right. As I said, everybody, welcome to this beautiful Wednesday. Before we jump in and chat with today's guest, I want to quickly remind everybody that we are open for questions. If you have any questions about your relationships, or if there's a topic you'd like to hear discussed on the show, slide into my DMs. Follow us on all social media platforms, especially Facebook and Instagram. That's where I'm most active, at Practicing Polya, but we're there everywhere. Send me a message. Would love to hear from you and get your topic talked about on the air. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, wherever it is that you download podcasts. Remember that this show is live. Join us for the recording. You can get your questions answered live on the spot. And as always, reminder, if you're listening to this podcast, you are a welcome guest to be on the show. We're here to share stories, and we want to get as many voices as possible to speak here, because the more stories we hear, the more representation we have, the more others see us in themselves, and the more we can strengthen our community. So go to practicingpolyamory.com and sign up today. All right, y'all know I'm going to say that every day, but the best part of the show, introducing our awesome guest. I can say with 100% certainty that our guest today is a gamer. Now, I have no idea whether or not our guest actually plays video games. Actually, I do now, because we totally... Anyway, my guess is he definitely does. But a fascinating thing that he's done, is to gamify therapy. Change is hard. It takes a lot of effort. It's often overwhelming, especially if you're particularly susceptible to overwhelm. And there's something they don't tell you about change. It takes a lot of practice, aka repetition, to affect real change. Today's guest has applied game theory to psychotherapy, and by using gamification, temptation bundling, and reward systems, he keeps his clients engaged and having fun while making impactful changes in their lives. I'm so excited to speak to this innovator and hero. Joining us today from Heroic Health Group out of Largo, Florida. Welcome to the show, Matt Fahy.
Hi, James.
No, you were good. Did you?
Yeah. Thanks for having me here. It's great.
Thank you, Matt, for hanging out with me today. I really appreciate you taking the time. I want to hear all about you. Shock and surprise just before the show when you told me you're a nerd. So tell me your nerdy stories. Tell me how you decided to gamify therapy. What brought that on? How did you do it?
I started out like most, mental health counselors and doing agency work. And so you're more about sitting there going in and they say, here's a stack of charts. That's what you do. And you do that, right? To the best of your ability. Those are your cases. You try to go take care of those people. You do the best job you can. And there's not a lot of freedom. But you do learn the ropes. You do learn what you're doing and you find out some things that you're good at. And as you progress, at some point, you're like, I want to go try private practice. And I moved into private practice. I remember the first odd question I got, which is a normal thing in private practice to ask, what is your specialty? And and I was like, whatever cases no one wants here, they put them on my desk. And that's what I do.
Oh, man.
So yeah, I didn't have a specialty. And they were like, well, you can do anything you want. And I thought about it, and I'd heard about using Dungeons and Dragons for group therapy with a variety of clients, and I'm a big gamer. And I was like, I really want to try this because I myself don't like going in a room, talking to someone and not knowing who they are and them putting us through like silly things to do together that nobody there wants to do. Right. I have the same reaction. I'm like, yeah, can this be over soon?
Who wants to do that?
Yeah, nobody wants to do it. And so I get it from kids. And I've done work with children before too. And I know that they freeze up. You're somebody they don't know. Right. They're in a very vulnerable position. and you're an adult, like, and you're boring.
My niece and nephew are at that age right now where I'm no longer cool. I used to be the cool uncle, and now I'm just the uncle. But anyway, so you use games to break these walls down for people to get them more comfortable with the idea of therapy, and you make it fun. Now I'm a bad polyamorist. I don't think I've played D&D since like sophomore year of high school. I tried it once. So you got to explain to me how I know the basics, right? Roll the dice, and if it's 20, that's a good thing, and if it's a 1, that's going to be really, really bad. So, how do you use D&D, make it into a game that you can use for therapy? Well, it sounds super easy, but tell me.
So group therapy is fundamentally, it's about scaffolding. And so other members in the group are able to show people the behaviors that you want the client to learn, because maybe they've already learned them, or maybe they need to learn from the other person something. And so they're transferring what they have as ability. With Dungeons and Dragons, you're allowing that to happen, but you're also allowing an imaginative world with no real repercussions, right? Mm-hmm. So no one's going to get in trouble for making a mistake. Their character might get hurt, but you're going to heal them, so it's fine. But they get to experiment with these things they need to learn about in a very safe place, mm-hmm. that they're not really taking any risks. And that's from anything from dealing with bullies to gender. So all of that's an option inside of the game that you can pull off as just, we're having fun. We're playing a game.
Just playing a game. So I am thinking of 2 pop culture references that are heavy in D&D mythology, right? So I'm thinking Onward from Disney, right? Okay. And Netflix, Stranger Things.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. There's a lot of those things that go in there. How would you relate? Have you seen those? Yeah. First of all, are you familiar with those? Okay,
yes,
cool. Whew, because that was totally going to ruin my question if you hadn't seen those shows. But how does, if at all, how would you use some of the stuff from those shows, some of the stuff that you've seen in the shows, how it relates to therapy?
So I think with Onward, you're seeing 2 brothers, and they're having to solve these problems together, and they're both showing each other where they're capable, and they're able to cover for one another and scaffold the behaviors that the other one needs to learn, right? Just like I was saying. So they're showing each other, hey, this is what I'm really good at. This is how I do it. And the other one goes, oh, that's how he does it. Wow, that's amazing about him. I think I can learn that from him too.
Nice. And so in your group therapy practice, taking it back, when you have that going on in D&D, as the dungeon master, right, you get to create the scenarios, and you tell a story that puts their character in a spot where they need to, I don't know, continue the story for me. Okay. What do they need to do when their character is faced with a dilemma?
So, I think one of the ones is they create their own confrontation, and then they have to solve it, and that's anywhere from they find treasure, and then they have to divide it amongst the group. And so if you have people that need to learn better sharing, okay, then that becomes a thing. And somebody in the group is hopefully going to step forward and be like, no, we have to do this the right way. And if they don't, there's no repercussions. They're not going to get hurt from it, but maybe they gave the wand to the thief, and they gave the special knife to the wizard. And now those 2 things are kind of useless within the party. So later on down the line, when they face the big bad guy, they're going to lose because of misappropriation of the goods.
Got it. I love that. All right. One of the things you wanted me to make sure to touch on was using nonviolent language and I statements. So when this situation happens that they gave the knife to the wizard and the wand to the, what did you say, the bard?
Yeah, the thief.
Sure.
Yeah,
we'll go with that.
Right. Yeah,
that was totally. Anyway, when that happens, an argument possibly ensues, and maybe solving those with I statements. And how else do you use it? Give me another example.
I mean, Well, the language, the I statements is, being on the Poly Show, I thought this is something I really want to bring because this is something I run into all the time as a therapist working with polycules, couples, whatever, right? I'm working with everybody, and this comes up a lot where somebody teaches them in therapy or somewhere along the line, they learn an I statement. And that's the idea that you're going to take ownership of your feelings in the situation. You're going to express those feelings about the situation without laying blame on the other person. And often what I get is the person puts I in front of a sentence that is still bad. They don't grasp the concept that it is, you're not going to lay blame on the other person. You're just going to say what the situation is. It's not their fault. This is the situation. And they can take it and make change, or they can explain why they're doing it, apologize that it's causing the other person that problem, and try to come up with a solution, hopefully. Right. But the idea is that when you lay blame on the other person for the scenario, even if that other person's creating it, they become defensive. And once they're defensive, you're not going to have a productive conversation. And so, I feel like you're a giant pain in the butt is not an I statement.
Right. Okay. What would be an I statement? Like, how can we change something like that? Can you give us some examples, maybe some things that you've seen where somebody was using exactly the way that you said, I think that you're a giant pain in the ass, that's one thing, but it doesn't sound like that's, well, I don't know. You tell me other examples, other ways that you've heard these I statements get twisted and how you got them turned around so that they actually are true I statements.
So it's really in the formation of language. And so it gets down into semantics, and sometimes you have to practice it on your own before you bring it to the person. That's a big thing. And the more you practice, the better you're going to get. But a simple example is how important language is when we talk about this stuff is just the tiniest example. Did you get your homework done? Right? That implies the person did not get what the job was done. You already know they didn't get it done, and they're already in trouble before you came into the room and asked. As opposed to, hey, do you need any help with the homework?
Got it.
Same question.
Did you take out the trash? Did you clean this? Did you get that thing fixed in the car? Whatever.
Yeah.
And knowing that wasn't done, it's creating that problem before it really is a problem, I guess. It's like you're going into it with a hostile intent. Does that sound right?
Yeah, I mean, it's not even hostile in our concept when we go into it. It just turns out to be because of how our society has put focus on who is in command, who's in charge, who is the person that is responsible, as opposed to being like, you know what, we're kind of all in this together. So if you need help, I'm here. And you really do get the same answer, and you really do get the thing done faster, because if they do need help, then they need help. Like, they're not going to get it done without that help. And so by asking, you either motivate them to do it because they know your support is there, or they're like, yeah, man, give me some help. And then it gets done. So you're there for them.
So it sounds to me like using I statements puts the onus of responsibility on ourselves, on each of our own persons. And that actually brings us closer together as teammates, as opposed to like internalizing or becoming more self-dependent. Does that sound right to you?
Yeah. This is my favorite example. I'm stealing it from one of the worksheets I use all the time, but it's really inconsiderate for you to come home so late. Right?
Okay.
That's the wrong way to do it. As opposed
That's the wrong way to do it.
Yeah, it's the wrong way to do it. And then the right way would be, I get really worried when you come home so late. Sometimes I can't even sleep.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
That's what we were looking for. Well done. Okay, so now we understand that you come home late, and that freaks me out. Like, that's not the right way. But I get worried, so I'm taking responsibility of my own emotions. One common thing that I hear or see, that this lends to abuse is somebody says, well, those are your feelings, and you're responsible for your feelings. What would you say to that?
People are responsible for their feelings, but if they're being honest about it, do you want to create those feelings in them? Right? Like, do you want to, if you know that hurts the other person, is there a compromise that works out with them? Can you text them? Like, you're always trying to work toward compromise. And in that regard, that's when you get over to the concept of aggressive, passive, and assertive communication. Right. So this is the next step in the chain is like, where are you in this communication? And if the person is passive and that person is being aggressive, which is usually what's happening there, then it comes down to the person that's passive learning how to be more assertive and being like, well, you know, my feelings do matter. And I want us to come together at some mutual ground. I really could benefit and feel better if I just knew you were okay.
All right, you said aggressive communication, passive communication. What was that third one?
Assertive.
Yeah. Assertive. Can you give me some examples of each of those types of communication? Aggressive, passive, and assertive. I don't know if it works if talking about the same thing.
Yeah. So, let me
try an example. I forgot to go get baby formula.
Okay.
And now one of my partners is mad at me, or both of them are mad at me.
Okay.
Because I forgot that. Okay, go.
Passive is, okay, well, you know, I can run out and I can get it. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's completely inconvenient for them. Maybe they've been taking care of the baby the whole time. That's been really unhappy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then assertive is, get the hell out of here and go get some baby formula. Like that's aggressive. Sorry. It's aggressive is just to be like, that's your problem. Go fix it now.
Mm-hmm.
Right. No consideration. And then, you know, assertive is, well, we really need it. Either you can watch the baby or I can, but somebody needs to run out and get it. You know?
Okay.
So you're giving a compromise. You're saying, okay, well, this has to happen, but either of us can go take care of it, and that's up to you.
So it sounds like passive could lead to like passive aggression later, where if we don't take action about it now, I'm going to grow resentful from it. Does that sound about right to you?
It's the passive aggressiveness, but it's also that person isn't expressing their needs, so they tend to get walked over because maybe somebody doesn't even know. Because maybe somebody's really assertive in that relationship, but the other person isn't expressing their needs, so they don't know that they're just stepping on that other person's.
Got it.
Needs, right? Yeah.
All right. So now I'm going to bring it back.
Okay.
How does this kind of therapy, how do these kinds of topics come up in gamified therapy?
So a lot of it is just being really nerdy. just connecting with my clients on that really nerdy level, and trying to help them figure that part out on what clicks for them. Mm-hmm. So yesterday, somebody realized that she became very overwhelmed very quickly in the situation. She's very passive. It's very hard for her to think in that regard. And so we went through and we found that it helps if she drops back and has Spock in her head, right? And mm-hmm. Spock's there to check in with her and go, hey, you know, are you thinking through this with your emotion? Are you in an emotional place? And that's what's making you overwhelmed. And when she does that, she's able to go, okay, wait a minute. I'm allowing myself to become overwhelmed. How do I handle this? What is the logical answer? And so just sometimes connecting with whatever their nerdy vein is part of the gamification, because it's imagination. You're helping them imagine, create visualizations that help bring up that behavior. And instead of it just being some therapist's words and a worksheet, it's things that they connect with, characters they connect with.
So interesting. So interesting. It's like role playing in a ding, 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 light bulbs. Like, right? It is literally role playing games, but just using it in this unique, fun, therapeutic way. That's super cool, Matt.
Thanks, man.
That is super cool. I'm I'm loving it. What else? What have I missed? What didn't I ask you that you wish I had asked you so far?
I think the other thing I'd said is, what would I say if I came on your show is probably the most important thing that I could give to everybody. And it really came down to, when I thought about it, it's better to go to therapy before things are bad. Mm-hmm. And you can get some basic stuff from a good cognitive behavioral therapist that can help you along the way, that can help you and your partners along the way. Like one of the biggest ones that shocks me all the time is everybody comes to me when things are bad, and the mm-hmm. first thing I always ask is, okay, do you guys have fair fight rules? And I always hear no.
Fair fight rules?
Yeah.
Well, tell me more.
Okay. Fair fight rules are pretty basic, and I teach them my kids, but they're meant for, people that are in a relationship together. But my kids love them too.
We're all
kids
just
are like, okay,
kids.
This works. Right,
Let's be honest.
But it's when people start using hurtful language, or they start losing, tonal control, then you need to have a break. That is automatic. You can't just power your way through and, yell and scream and, use nasty language. Yeah.
Feels pretty basic. Feels like I learned that in kindergarten.
Right? But we forget about that. We forget about that, when we're really upset at the end of the month and complaining about who needs to chip in what for bills. Right? Yeah. When there's things that are hard, we tend to all get nervous about them. Money is a big one. I find that, that's always a problem. So that's the first one. The second one is the person that first notices it, or the person that is overwhelmed, whatever their reason, and they call for a break. Mm-hmm. That person is in charge of remembering what the topic was and saying when we should come back. Like, okay, I need a break. Let's come back in an hour, and I'll remember what we were talking about. Right.
Interesting. So that's another good fair fight rule, and that definitely makes more. I don't know. That's a new one for me. How does it apply specifically across polycules, or maybe better said, what issues do you see with polycules when it comes to fair fight rules?
I think it's that what I've seen is when two of the people's partners are having these fights that are kind of getting out of control. And the other partner's like, we don't know what to do. Like it's harmful for us to watch them be so harmful to each other. Like, we're all okay, and we're okay with them, but they're not okay. And we don't know how to separate ourselves from this to be helpful, because they want to choose sides. Right? They want
their partner.
Yeah, they're like, okay, well, you're really being the aggressor here, and this person is, so they end up choosing or seeing it from their point of view, and sometimes their point of view isn't, just it isn't weighed out. They don't have all the facts. They don't understand it. It's their feelings are more involved than their logic. So that's kind of a big one, is to walk the whole group through learning how to do a little reality testing, how to take the situation and strip it down to its basics and go, okay, what's the worst thing that could happen? What's the best thing that could happen? What's probably the most realistic thing that can happen? Will this be a problem in a week? Will it be a problem in a month? Will it be a problem in a year? Those are quick ways to blow it off. Not blow off in a bad way, but to be like, yeah, we're arguing about this. We'll have fixed it. What are we doing?
Right.
The other one is just, what would I say if this wasn't my relationship and my friend came to me and told me this scenario?
It's always so tough. That one's always so tough. I had a conversation over the weekend with my partner about shame, right? Okay. Shaming myself for smoking weed, right? It was this whole, I grew up with, very anti-drinking, anti-smoking. I didn't, try any of that stuff until after high school, whatever. So like, this was my background. So there's a lot of shame that I was carrying it. What were you saying? Because I lost my train of thought.
That imagining that a friend came to you with that problem and
That
then
one.
answering it for them. Yeah.
That one. And so she asked me, she said, what would you tell somebody that came to you and felt shame for, for their habit? And I was like, yikes. Sometimes that's hard to do, just to put yourself in those shoes. The other thing that I wanted to ask you, was in those situations where we have all of these different partners that are involved, and do we find a mediator? Do you find that there's often like a mediator, or should we pick somebody to be a mediator?
I think, that's like the blessing and the curse in the poly relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because there aren't just two people bouncing these concepts off of each other and misconstruing them. There is an outside view that is much closer to them than the neighbor or a family member that doesn't live with them, right? This is a much closer, heartfelt view. And so you do have that as a gift, but that can also very quickly become a problem as well, because that person, sometimes the side they take ends up causing more problem than healing the situation. And so it has to be handled carefully. And sometimes it does need outside help. And that's why I'm like, it when it starts to feel uncomfortable and it starts to feel like you need help, get help. We're not, at least for me as a therapist, I try to be fun. I try not to get in everybody's business. I let you tell me what you're going to tell me. And I try to actually solve problems. I'm solution focused. So if you're gonna get a therapist, go for somebody that's solution focused, because they don't need your entire background. They don't need everybody's concern. They say, what's the problem? You tell them the problem. They're like, okay, what's going on during the problem? You tell them what's going on, and they start looking to help you to find answers and to move past it. And I think that that's the big thing that having that outside person is to help you move past that without involving everybody into choosing sides.
You're right. It would definitely start to grow a resentment towards whoever side gets picked. And there's no easy way unless we go and talk to somebody like Matt. Matt, if somebody wanted to reach out to you, if somebody wanted to get a hold of you, wanted to work with you, wanted to game with you, therapy or otherwise, how would people get in touch with you?
They can go to my website, heroichealthgroup.com. I come up pretty quick. My last name's easy to remember, especially in consideration with Dungeons and Dragons. Matt Fahy. It's Fahy. You can pull me up. I got a few sites out there. And I think like info@heroichealthgroup.com. That's my email. You can always email me and ask me. I try my best to work with everybody with whatever they need, or refer you to somebody else that I know that's a lot of fun and does a good job. So yeah.
Awesome. Matt, it has been such a pleasure getting to know you, getting to laugh with you, getting to learn about gamifying therapy. I think that this is a really cool thing that you're doing. I think that there's definitely a lot of nerds, a lot of us nerds. My nerdery is the Marvel Cinematic Universe, by the way.
Awesome choice.
Thank you. I agree. Yeah, lots of gamers, lots of people that need help, lots of great resources. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you, as always, to our live audience for tuning in today. As a reminder, when we're live, we get no commercial interruptions, but the same can't be said for those podcast downloads. So if you want to avoid the commercial interruptions, be sure to catch us live Monday through Wednesday, 2:30. Got a special episode tomorrow with Remodeled Love, or sign up for our Patreon where you'll get access to our commercial-free RSS feed and support the show. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, wherever it is that you download your podcast if you haven't already, and please leave us a review. We'll really appreciate it. Thank you again, Matt. Thank you again, everybody. Until next time, tomorrow.
Have a nice day!
Thank you for tuning in to the Practicing Polyamory podcast. Would you or someone in your polycule like to be a guest? Sign up at practicingpolyamory.com and join the conversation. Please support us by subscribing, liking, and following us on social media at Practicing Polya by clicking any of the affiliate links on our website or by subscribing at patreon.com/practicingpolya.